Okay, folks, today we are going to begin our Monk project. I actually have to give credit to when I took my Apple Final Cut Pro Level 1 certification, I ripped this out of the CD, the footage that came with that, and now I'm using it to teach Premiere. So hopefully that doesn't get broadcast too heavily, otherwise I might get in trouble for using this footage. But it's still for education purposes, right? Okay, hopefully we don't get in trouble. All right, so I'm going to begin a new project, and I'm going to call this Scott Halford Monk. I'm going to call this 2016. I'm going to browse for my folder location, which is my 2534 Monk Premiere. I'm going to choose that folder right there. Click OK, and Premiere will open up. Now, step one. Let me make a video bin, new bin. Call this video. All right, so inside this bin, I'm going to Command I to import my video files, which hopefully if you've copied, you should have copied them over into an assets folder for video, which will be these MP4s. Don't worry about this .mov, you're not actually going to use it for your project. It's just a reference video. So just import these MP4s. And we're going to take a look at these. Now I'm going to switch this over to my list view and just double click on, I'm going to double click on this second to last one because it has both of our characters in the shot. Now from first look, can anybody tell me what's wrong with the footage?
It has those words across it.
Okay, so yeah, that's copy, that's a watermark that's going to appear on all the footage. That's just to remind you that it's not yours, nor is it mine.
Is it the clicker?
Okay, the clicker's in the shot. That's fine. But look at the overall image.
Oh, it's square?
It's square. Or in let me go forward a little bit.
Oh, it's squished.
It's squished. Okay. Now this is an example of square versus non-square pixels. See this number over here, this 960 by 720? 960 is one of those numbers that's kind of like 1440 by 1080, where it's if these pixels were perfectly square, like they were just as wide as they were tall, then this is the ratio that the image would produce. What we have to do is tell Premiere to interpret the pixels of this footage as wide pixels. And then when we do that, then it'll reinterpret the image and make it 16:9, and then everything will look great. So the way we interpret the footage, we tell Premiere to interpret the footage is we right-click on the asset in the project panel. Then we go to modify, and then we go to interpret footage. So if I click on that, I'll get a dialog box. Now there's all sorts of things we can interpret. For example, frame rate. If this footage were being interpreted incorrectly, then we would either be hearing chipmunks or be listening to Frankenstein's monster. They'd either be playing too fast or too slow. So that's not the issue with this one. Although, if we shot the footage at 120 frames a second, then the footage would say that it was 120 frames per second. And if we wanted it to play back in slow motion, then we could say assume a frame rate of anything slower, and then it would slow the footage down. So it would that kind of globally changes the footage, the frame rate. Frame rate is for this is fine. Okay, so this is working. What we have with this footage is a pixel aspect ratio problem. It's being interpreted by the software at this point as square pixels. But that's producing an image that's squished, as you can see here. So what we need to do is conform the footage to something that is wide. And in this case, it's HD anamorphic is the aspect ratio that we need. So if I click that, then click OK, watch what happens to the image over here. Bloink. Now it appears correct. If you've been staring at him squished for long enough, now he seems wide, but I promise he looks normal now. All right, so if you were an intuitive video editing software programmer, would you insist that you have your users do that one at a time to every single clip?
No.
No. Anybody want to guess how you do that to all the clips at the same time?
Select all of them?
If you select all of them, this is assuming we have the same problem with all of them. Yeah, that one's square, that one's square. So yes, the same problem exists for all of these. So yeah, select all of them, right click, select modify, interpret footage, and then conform the aspect ratio to HD anamorphic. Click that, click OK. All your footage has been fixed. Okay. You can experiment with some other ones. Like, let's say you're not convinced that was the right one. You can try this DV widescreen, which is slightly different aspect ratio. Which one of those looks right?
It's still too squished.
You think so?
Yeah, because Tony's not that narrow, pointy-headed.
You don't think?
No.
Okay.
'Cause I
Let's
look at the
check
camera,
something.
The camera doesn't look right.
Yeah, this doesn't look right. You're correct, but let's do a little test for a second. Let's make a new sequence. Now this is a good example of when you need to know what these presets are doing. For this one, I'm going to use the XDCam. I'm going to take 1080p and use a 24p because I know that's a 16:9 square pixel. This is what I'm mainly looking at. 1920 by 1080 square pixels. That's the resolution. I know that's 16:9. So what I'm going to do is grab one of these and place it into a timeline that I know is a 16:9 timeline. It's going to ask me if I want to change the settings, and I'm going to say no. Keep the existing settings the way they are. Okay, because I am going to tell this footage, I'm going to right click on this clip in the timeline, and I'm going to tell it to fit frame, scale to frame size, set to frame size. And check that out. It scaled it so that it fit top and bottom, but do you see these black bars on the side? That tells me that this footage has been interpreted incorrectly because it's supposed to be 16:9 and it's not. It's still not quite there. So you're absolutely right. He's still squished. So let's go over here.
Mine are the black are on the bottom.
Yours are on the bottom too?
They're on the top and the bottom.
Oh, so there's a box. Okay, let me undo this real quick. Does it look like that?
No, it's just the top and the bottom, not the sides.
Oh, did you go too wide on yours? Let me pause this for a second. I'll see. All right, so let me do that again. I'm going to right click on this and select scale to frame size, which means this isn't wide enough. So let me reinterpret all this footage. If I right click on it, modify, interpret footage, go to conform to 1.333, click OK, it adjusts and it fills that full 16:9 image. Okay, so that tells me that that interpretation is correct. Now let me go down to this make new sequence thing again. Whoops. New item, sequence. Let's take a look at these settings. If I click on, let me go back and let me try, oh, I can't expand that window. Let me click on this XDCAM EX30 sequence. Now, can anybody tell me why I picked this 24 instead of this 30?
The frames per
Frame
second.
rate.
Yes. Now, I said this at the beginning of the semester, and I'll say it again. Frame rate is more important than frame size. Okay? Because if this number does not match this number right here, then you're going to have playback issues where the sequence is going to be either missing frames or duplicating frames in order to play your footage back, which means it'll start to look choppy when you export it, and probably while you're editing it too.
How'd you pull up this tab again?
This is your new sequence dialog box.
So where would I go to pull that?
You go down to this little new item
Oh,
button at the bottom of your project panel, bottom right of your project panel. New sequence. Okay, so that's why I picked the EX 1080 24p, is because it has the same frame rate as the footage I'm using. Now the reason, now that we know we've got this interpreted correctly, in theory we could just create a new sequence from the footage, because the footage is now being displayed properly. So you can do that. So let's do it. I'm going to right click on this and then new sequence from clip, and I can now call this Monk Edit. I'm going to drop this out of my bin and put it into my project panel. Okay. So what's the difference between this one and this one? Because I created a sequence from the clip, its resolution is different. It's 960 by 720 instead of 1080 by, or 1920 by 1080. Okay. They appear on my screen to be the same, which is good because they're both 16:9. All right. So that's the technical thing. If you import footage and for some reason the camera you shot it on produced a video file that your video editor is squishing or widening, this is how you fix it. You go to the interpret footage, modify, interpret footage, and you can change it there. This is also how you slow down footage that was shot in a high frame rate that was meant to be slow motion footage. You change the frame rate there. Typically you're not going to run into field order issues, but if you do, you can change that here too. But that's when you start getting into broadcast. All right, so your assignment for this week is to start your Monk project, create a sequence that is going to have at a minimum the same frame rate as your footage, and your footage needs to be interpreted so that it appears to be 16:9, even though the footage is only 960 by 720. Okay. Your timeline could either be 16:9 or it could either be 1080p or 720p, but it does need to be 16:9. Okay, and have a few clips already edited into this. Okay, so let's talk a little bit now that we've done this. Let's talk briefly again about editing narrative stuff. We have this shot, which is a wide shot of the entire room. We have this shot, which is a dirty over-the-shoulder shot of the doctor. We have this shot, which is the same shot, I think. Yeah, same shot. Different take. We have this shot, which is a single shot of the doctor. This one's clean because it's not being impeded by Monk's head at all. We have this shot, which is a two shot of Doctor and Monk from a closer perspective, yeah, over the couch. And then we have the same thing for Monk. We have the dirty over-the-shoulder shot of the Monk, and then we have the clean single shot of Monk. Okay. So given what we have here, what do you think would make the most sense for opening the scene?
Wide shot.
The wide shot of the whole room. This is actually somewhat dictated by the footage because you have a bunch of conversation and then the director calls action and they only get like 2 lines into the scene before the footage ends. Okay, so yes, that is the correct answer. We want to use this shot as our establishing shot. So let's have a listen.
I just don't know what to say. I'm speechless.
Okay, did you hear the director call action? My guess is your end point is going to be somewhere after that. Okay, so I, right there, end point. Let's listen to how much we have.
I just don't know what to say. I'm speechless. I'm very, very proud.
No big deal.
No, it is.
It's only one weekend. I'll be gone for 2 nights.
All right, only one channel of this sound system's working. All right, so yes, let's use that. Let's grab that, pull that down onto the timeline, and now we have that shot. Here's a good opportunity, I know, for a J cut. I'm going to next cut to this one because as you're watching a scene, we want to see where we're at. And then next we want to see who's having this conversation, you know, because from this far away shot, if you don't have very good eyesight, you might not recognize who that is, even though if you've seen this show, you've probably seen this opening shot 100 times and you know exactly where we are and who he's talking to. But for those people who don't know, this might be the next best shot. So we need to find the right place for this cut to happen. This is pre-action stuff.
Adrian, I just don't know what to say. I'm speechless.
It's no big deal.
No, I'm very, very proud of you, and it is.
It's just one weekend. I'll be gone for 2 nights.
Okay, I'm going to end it after that because I've cut this scene together like 50 times. So I'm actually going to pick, after he calls action,
Adrian, I just don't know what to say. I'm speechless.
I'm going to do it at I'm speechless before Monk starts his line. I'm going to drop this down in here. Now let's trim this. There's a point in which he says,
No big deal.
so that no big deal is nonchalant, right? This no big deal, let me close this panel. This no big deal
It's no big deal.
is a little bit more humble, trying to maybe like deflect the compliment. Which do you want? Which do you like as the editor or the director?
More nonchalant.
You like the nonchalant one? No big deal.
Because that's more anti what it would be really Monk, so.
Okay.
I'm very, very proud of you.
No big deal.
All right, so we need to get,
No, it is. I think.
That's no big
No,
deal.
no, I'm very, very proud of you, and it is a big deal.
okay. Let's trim this back using our ripple trim to after the nonchalant. No big deal.
What do you press again to get that ripple?
Just hold down Command. It'll turn it into the ripple tool. And so we're going to want to get rid of this one.
That's no big deal.
All right, so let's trim it right there.
Yep.
Now let's listen.
No big deal.
No, no, I'm very, very proud of you.
Okay, so we have a little bit of an issue. And it's that this sound system isn't showing you what's going on with the sound. Let's do it. I'm going to do a J cut right here because I need to get a little bit more of the doctor here. And rather than troubleshoot this because you can't hear the doctor right now, take a look at the audio for the monk. As you can see, what's happened here is in the footage, we see the doctor's side is right here. Okay, sorry, I'm a little flustered right now because of this sound system. The audio recording had two channels that were being recorded. There were two microphones. One microphone was pointed at doctor, and the other microphone was pointed at monk, but they were both being recorded into the same audio recorder, one into the left channel and one into the right channel. So that's why on the top here you can see when the doctor's talking, you see these waveforms nice and big, but they're small here. And the reason for that is because even though there was one pointed at one actor and one pointed at the other actor, the microphone will still pick up the sound of the other person. It just won't be loud because it's not pointed at that person. Because remember, first day in class, I showed the shotgun microphone to you, So the pickup pattern is very directional. So here's the monk's line right here. What we're going to do later is we're going to duplicate this audio and then assign the audio to be all left channel on one and then all right channel on the other so that both actors' voices fill both speakers all the time, okay? Because it would be weird as an audience member to hear the audio going back and forth, right? As an editor, if you are listening with headphones right now, you got the doctor out of your left ear and monk out the right ear, which is really weird. But let me show you what's happening here. So visually, you can see what's happening right here. What's happening with the two actors and their audio.
They're not even.
Yeah, okay, so the doctor's audio is starting to go up here as the monk's audio is big, which tells me the doctor is talking over the monk at this point. So we may be limited in our editing choices to having to use the audio from to using this performance of the monk, the one where he's trying to shrug off the compliment, because if we try to use the doctor's line from this take, the doctor is going to be, we're going to inadvertently use the end of monk's line in this, which is going to create kind of a puzzle issue. So let me make this easy for myself and just say I'm going to have to use the monk from the first take, or from the second take. So let me trim this back to before the monk starts talking, right at the end of the doctor's line. Then I'm going to delete this little piece. And then come back here, do the same thing. I'm going to delete this little piece again. Now, we've got the monk starting to talk right here. So let me just trim this back one more frame. And take a look. And let's just watch it.
That's no big deal.
Okay, but we've got this little head nod here. See him kind of nodding his head? We can't really see his mouth moving, but we see a reaction from the monk's head right here. So let's do a J cut. What I'm going to do, just to make this easy for myself, is I'm going to drop the monk's audio down to the previous line, or previous track, and I'm going to just overlap the video right here so that, see those intersections? Maybe I'm one frame off. Let's just get this a little closer, right there. So there's a coinciding there.
That's no big deal.
Okay.
That's no big deal.
Okay. We happy with that?
I just don't know what to say.
I'm going to get a little ahead of myself because I want to hear the doctor right now. If I right click on this and click audio channels, then I can tell this clip to assign the left channel, source channels, this left one, to come out the right and the left. Click OK, and then you can see it represented right there, right and left.
Nice.
Okay, so now we can hear it.
Adrian, I just don't know what to say. I'm speechless and I'm very, very proud of you. That's no big deal.
Okay. Now let's do, I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to I'm going to hold down Command and Alt, and I'm going to roll this video to be later than the audio cut and see how I like it.
Very, very proud of you. That's no big deal.
Okay. Is it a toss-up?
Well, you missed, like, the head nod was a little bit off than you were before, and so now.
Adrian, I just don't know what to say. I'm speechless. That's no big deal.
Okay. Did you like it before better?
No, this is better.
You like this one better? Okay. All right. Now he's far enough away that we can't really see that his mouth isn't moving perfectly, but at least there's like mannerisms, like gestures that are happening that are making it work. Now, since we've already done a little bit with editing, audio editing, we could we could just leave this like this because this is the doctor's microphone, and there's a little bit of pickup from the monk right here. So if we wanted to really make this precise, we could hold down Alt and trim this back so that it's before it's got some of that pickup from the monk chuckling, and that'll just clean it up so that we only hear the monk in this second line.
I don't know what to say. I'm speechless and I'm very, very proud of you. That's no big deal.
Oops, I'm missing part of his U. Did you hear that? This is actually the U.
Don't know what to say. I'm speechless and I'm very, very proud of you. That's no.
Okay. Did you hear? See, you can actually see it, but did you hear that as the doctor was talking, he got softer and softer and softer till he almost didn't even hear you?
Yeah.
What could we do about that?
Turn the volume up,
We could turn the volume up, but all of the volume?
just from that point. Like
Okay.
to your
So let's
opposite
I'm going to hold down Command again and put my mouse over the envelope for the volume, and then place a keyframe here and then another keyframe later, so that as time goes on, as he's trailing down in volume, we're increasing the volume to create what sounds like him maintaining the volume. Maybe the microphone wasn't following him or something, who knows.
I just don't know what to say. I'm speechless and I'm very, very proud of you. That's no big deal.
So we could maybe even take that a little farther.
Just don't know what to say. I'm speechless and I'm very, very proud of you. That's no big deal.
Okay. Now you're going to do this more as next time we're going to separate the audio out a little bit more and work on making them sound like they're together, because overall the monk's lines are louder than the doctor's. We need to make them sound like they're in the same room and we're sitting equidistant between the two of them and listening to them. Another thing to think about as you're cutting back and forth is, if the doctor asks Monk a question, would you cut before or after Monk begins to answer? Before, because you're going to expect an answer if there's a question. If doctor interrupts Monk in the middle of Monk talking, would you cut before or after the doctor starts talking? After, because you wouldn't expect the interruption, so it would come after. If the doctor's saying something emotional to the monk and he's got a really long line and he says something that might prick Monk's heart a little bit, would you stay on the doctor the whole time?
No.
Or would you take a brief moment to see what the monk is, or how the monk is reacting?
See how Monk's reacting.
Yeah, you would see. You'd want to cut to the monk for just a second to see if there's a reaction, and if there is, what, you know? If there's no reaction whatsoever, and you cut to him for a split second, then cut back, what does that say? Monk's got, this isn't sinking in. If he starts to tear up, starts to well up, oh, maybe he is having a reaction. If Monk brings his finger up to his mouth like he's going to gag, that's a different sort of reaction. That's something you want the audience to know, okay? And so that's something to think about. We have one more part of this lecture, but it's going to be in a different video. We're going to set up multi-camera editing, okay? So let's end this lecture.